One morning you wake up and you look in the mirror and the person staring back feels like a stranger. Your marriage ended maybe after decades, or the job that defined you is gone, or maybe the beliefs you built your life around don't make sense anymore and you think, who am I without all that? This is identity crisis. And it's one of the most disorienting experiences you'll ever face. But here's what most people don't understand. There's a clear psychological reason that this happens. And when you understand the mechanism, you understand that you're not broken. You're experiencing something that makes complete sense. And that's what this video is about. This is for you if you've ever lost a major role through divorce, or job loss, or retirement, or empty nest, or a belief change, and you're struggling with this question of, who am I now? In the last video, I showed you that there's a part of you that never changes, the awareness itself, and that's your foundation. But today, I want to explain what you're experiencing and why losing your roles feels like losing yourself. Now, this is from chapter 1 of my book, From Reactive to Resilient. Today, we're covering what identity crisis actually is, why it happens psychologically, and what actually helps when you're in it. So let's dive in. So first, let me define this clearly. Identity crisis is the experience of not recognizing yourself when your defining roles disappear. It's not just grief, though grief might be a part of it. It's not depression, though depression might show up. Identity crisis is when the roles that structured your sense of self, like spouse, professional, parent, or believer, are suddenly gone and you don't know who you are without them. You look at your life and you think, I don't even know who this person is anymore. Your daily routines don't make sense. Your decisions feel impossible and your future looks blank because the structure you used to organize your sense of self, those roles, isn't there anymore. And here's what makes it so disorienting. You didn't just lose something external, you lost the internal map of who you thought you were. So why does this happen? Because that's how human identity actually forms. From childhood on, you learn who you are through roles, like daughter or student, professional, spouse, or parent. And here's the thing, your brain doesn't experience those as roles that you play. Your brain experiences them as who you are. Think about it. When someone asks, who are you? What do you say? You don't say, I'm awareness observing life through a temporary human form. You say, I'm a teacher. I'm a parent. I'm married. You define yourself by your roles. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's how we're wired. But it creates a fragile foundation because when the role disappears, it feels like you disappear. Let me give you my example. I was married for almost 25 years, and for that whole time, a significant part of my identity was I'm a husband. Not just I have a wife, but I'm a husband. It shaped my decisions, my daily routines, how I saw myself, how other people saw me. And then I got divorced, and suddenly that entire structure was gone. I wasn't Mike the husband anymore. I was just Mike, and I didn't know who that was. My brain kept reaching for the old framework. What would I do as a husband? How would I spend my evening as a married person? But those answers didn't work anymore. It wasn't just grief over losing the relationship, though that was real. It was identity crisis. I didn't recognize the person whose life I was living. And here's what made it so hard. I couldn't just decide to be someone new. Identity doesn't work like that. You can't think your way into a new sense of self. You have to live your way into it. And the same thing happens with a job loss. You weren't just an executive or a teacher. You were that role. And when it ends, it's not just income lost, it's identity lost. So here's what happens psychologically. Stage 1 is the loss. The role ends. At first, you might be okay, maybe even relieved. But then stage 2, the disorientation, because then it hits you, wait, who am I without this? Your routine is different. Your purpose feels unclear. This is where the panic starts. And then stage 3, the search. Your brain frantically searches for new structure. What do I do now? Who am I supposed to be? And most people, I did this too, try to fill the void quickly. A new relationship, a new job, a new belief system, anything to stop feeling lost. But rushing it just creates another fragile identity. So what actually helped me? First, I stopped fighting it. I recognized I'm in an identity crisis because this is what's happening, and it's okay to not know who I am right now. Second, I learned what I showed you in that last video, which is there's a part of me that never changed, and that's the awareness itself. I wasn't just Mike, the husband. I was also the awareness observing that role, and that awareness is still here, still steady. And then third, I practiced what I now call the C.A.L.M method. Connect with what's actually happening right now, not what should be happening. Allow the uncertainty to be here without forcing a fix immediately. And then let go of the story that says, I should know who I am by now, and then move forward from awareness, not from panic. And slowly, sometimes very slowly, a new sense of self emerged. Not because I forced it, but because I gave it space to form. So why is identity crisis so incredibly difficult? Well, 3 reasons. One is it's invisible. People can see that you lost your job or got divorced. They can't see that you've lost your sense of self. So they don't understand why you're still struggling months later. 2, there's no timeline on this. Identity reconstruction takes as long as it takes. You can't rush it, you can't force it, and you can't think your way through it. 3, you can't go back. The old identity is gone. Those old roles don't fit anymore. You have to build something new, but you have to build it while you don't know who you are. And that's the paradox of identity crisis. And that's why it's one of the hardest things you'll ever navigate. So here's what I want you to understand. Your roles change. Your circumstances change. Your sense of self changes. But the awareness observing all that doesn't change. And as I showed you in the last video, you are not the changing content of your life. You are the steady awareness experiencing that content. Identity crisis happens when you think you are the roles. Recovery happens when you recognize you're the awareness watching those roles happen. That doesn't mean the roles don't matter, they do, but it means your foundation, your core stability doesn't depend on them. And that changes everything. So this is from chapter 1 of Reactive to Resilient, Practical Awareness for Major Life Changes. In that book, it walks you through the complete process of navigating identity crisis using the C.A.L.M method with practical tools for divorce, job loss, belief change, or any other major transition. It's available on Amazon in Kindle, paperback, hardcover, and audiobook. And I narrated the audiobook. Link is in the description. This is video 1 in the series. Every other Sunday through October, I'm teaching a new chapter. The next video is chapter 2, Why Pressure Makes You Question Everything. So subscribe so you don't miss it. And if this helped you understand what you're going through, let me know in the comments. I read every one. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in 2 weeks.